Welcome to the Michigan Bros Grow Show. This week, we have the Detroit Nutrients Company, Tommy, with us, and he's going to be telling us all about what his company makes as far as the water-only soil, worm castings, and we're going to cover some organic gardening today. So stay tuned. Check it out.
What's up, Tommy? I'm really excited to talk to you today, and I've heard a lot about Great Lakes water only for quite a while, so it's nice to sit down with you and speak with you. I was wondering off the rip, what do you have to say about yourself,
All right. Well, I own the Detroit Nutrient Company, and we've been around since 2012. We sell soil and worm castings, living soil and worm castings, and we've just been out here beating it up since 2012, hanging out with everybody and getting to know a long list of great growers. And we got introduced to a bunch of organic guys, and that's kind of our specialty. And now I get to travel the country and smoke weed and talk about growing it.
Living the dream.
It's a hell of a day job.
That's it. It's the best day job ever.
Awesome. Well, how did you get into the Detroit Nutrient Company? What kind of motivated you to start this thing? Could you not find good products around you? Necessity breeds invention.
Actually, when we first got started, I kind of lucked into it. To be honest with you, I was growing, and I was a caregiver to this guy, and he owned a company that had a bunch of really fire worm castings. He's like, "Hey, man, I know that pot growers are always looking for good worm castings, and I have like all these worm castings, and we can, I'll help you out. I'll get you started if you think you can sell them." So I went over, and I don't know if you guys know, it's Mike Gossett over at Ultra Green here in Detroit, in Redford on the border of Detroit. And I asked him how many bags. I said, how many bags of worm castings do you sell a month? And he told me, so I multiplied that times 222 stores that Michigan had at the time, and I said, yeah, I could do it. And that was it. So in the interim, we started doing, you guys remember the old MMM or the MMR conferences?
Yeah.
Were you around back
then?
Yeah. 2012, yeah.
Yeah, so we started doing the conferences with Ben over there, and I actually met, have you ever met IDK Farm, the RDK Farms team?
No.
So I got connected with IDK Farms really early. In IDK Organic Farms are breeders. I won a cup with them in 2014, and they started showing me how to mix fire soils and talking to me about teas and organics and stuff. And the rest is history.
Well, what did you win? What was the strain on your cup win?
So we won with the Perkins cut, the catatonic Perkins cut. We won the highest CBD, and then in 2015, we broke a record for the highest CBD entered in 15, and then we hit the strongest strains. I believe I went through. I was looking through the awards, and we were on the strongest strains 5 times with like OG18 and Death Star. So Eric's got a fire Death Star cut, the IDK Farms, and we just knocked it out of the park. Like we went above 30 when no one was doing, when no one was going above 30 on that. And so, yeah, man. So we just built up a big reputation, and yeah, that's how we got started. And you when you're selling worm castings and you're winning cups, and everybody's asking you, how do you do it? How are you? What's the secret? How are you breaking records and doing this stuff? And the two things was we're all organic, so if it's not organic, it's not medicine, and that was what we stood by. So we think that the organic aspect had a lot to do with the quality that put us across the top, and that being the soil that everybody wanted in on the soil. So we started making it.
You're basically just selling your mix?
The whole story. What's
awesome. So you're just selling your mix that you came up with and won some cups?
Yeah. So I mean, obviously, at the farm there, they have tricked out the mix, but yeah, it's the basis of the cup winning mix is the mix that I put in a bag, and we kind of got really lucky. I mean, we have a really good mix, and then I was lucky enough to get some doctors to work. We had a doctor come in. He helped us work on some aeration, so we have some aeration tricks in our soil that other people don't have. And I had a few, like I have like 5 agronomists that are friends. You know what I mean? That I speak to on a pretty regular basis. So I just really got really lucky. You know, I was just in the right place at every right time. And this, it was Michigan in 2013. If you weren't in the right place, you weren't in the right place. You know, if you were where it was at, you got to meet all these people. And that that's really a great thing about the scene, I think, here. You know, would you agree? I think.
Yeah. What do you think about the scene? We can continue talking about then, but what do you think about the scene? How it's progressed as rec kind of came into be a thing?
I think it's the most exciting thing ever. I have to tell you, I knew that it was going to be big. You know, I told everybody going into it. I said, "Man, this is going to be bigger than you think it is." You know, I don't know if you remember, but the hydro stores were hurting. Everybody was hurting before this passed, and so when rec came, we were thinking it was going to be a shot in the arm, but it's so exciting. There's so many people that you never saw, and these people are telling you, yeah, man, like I've always been a smoker, but I just didn't want to go get my card. I just didn't think there was that many people. I think the stigma has changed so much. You know what I mean? Like I think in the past 10 years, we went from being those filthy, potheads of smoking the devil's lettuce to they realized, hey, everybody you know, they started realizing my neighbor smokes weed and I'm friends with him. I drink beer with him at the bar and he smokes weed. Maybe this isn't the devil's lettuce, And
Exactly.
so you have all these, yeah. So you have these rec growers, and they're so cool. They're from so many walks of life, and I hate to say this. There's, the caregiver scene has developed some egos, and I love them. I've got a giant ego too. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, if you have a conversation with the better breeders here in Michigan, they know they're the better breed. If you've talked to Leaf Doctor, he knows what he is. You know what I mean? And so you have all these rec growers, and like they just have a square gig, a regular thing going during the day, and this isn't how they make their money, but they're really into it. And you're going to see these rec growers are going to do even more fantastic things. It's that fresh outlook. You know what I mean? It's a mushroom trip for the grow scene. It just is going to change the perspective of everything because everybody's going to be so different. And it's just super exciting. It's so great to be out there. We're doing it. We're doing so much promoting this year, and we're in all these stores talking. We're doing these grow classes with Horizon and HTG and stuff, and we're just killing it because we're getting a room full of people that want to just talk and learn and absorb knowledge. And when we can tell them about organics, I always, when I was a carpenter, this old guy told me, we want to get you before they teach you the wrong way. We don't want to have to unteach you the wrong way to do it.
Yeah, you don't want to teach people that are too smart to listen, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so you have all these people, and they're just, sucking it up again. It's really great. It's really fun. I like it. I mean, I don't know. I would think everybody I've talked to would agree that
Yeah, I agree.
it's you know
And
I feel like
speaking about the stigma thing, how much easier it is to go to somebody and be like, yeah, do you smoke or I smoke? Or when you're having a campfire, it's a lot more easy to just pull out a joint and light that thing. And then also about the stigma, have you ever looked out Chef Anna with the pot on Instagram? He goes to a Walmart and hands out jars to random people or sits them in the
yeah,
line at the in the aisle, and the cashier picks it
What's
up
on your
and all that
shoulder?
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't imagine doing that, even a couple years ago, and that guy's doing that now. It's amazing.
Right. Well, I was standing out here, and my nephew was going out to the forest this weekend, and so he came by the house, and he was standing in the driveway, and I handed him a Z. I was like, "Here, man, have fun. Keep an eye on your sister," and he's kind of looking around, and he's like, "Oh, wait, this is legit." I'm like, "Yeah, man, I'm just giving you some weed. We can do that."
Yeah,
It's
it's like I
an
gave you a case of beer. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's super cool. It's super. I mean, I don't know. You guys, I don't know how old you are, but when I was young, I would have never thought I saw it in my life.
No, I don't think so either. I did a wake and bake this morning in my garage with fellow IG grower of mine came by, and the police rolled by and shit, and because I'm an 80s smoker, and from those days and stuff, I wanted to get all nervous and stuff, like, oh, it's the cops. Then I was like, I'm still not used to it, man. And I guess that's a good thing, security and everything else. But going back to the stigma, I've always felt that people were verbally against cannabis, but secretly they would smoke it if they didn't think they would get in trouble for it, or they didn't have the right job, or you know what I mean? Like, if you're not catching slack from anybody for it, I think now these recreational days, people have loosened up and like, it's not really the demon drug that we thought it was. It's not angel dust and heroin and crazy shit like that.
Right. Well, and that's it. And oddly enough, I think that the perception. So, listen, it makes you want. I tell people this all the time. It was the greatest hustle ever. I mean, as far as the shakedown goes, I'm a Detroit guy. I love anything. If you think of a clever way to run game, I am just impressed. I'm not mad so much as impressed. And so when you look at the war on drugs, when you look at what you were told when you were a kid, when you look at the DARE officers and Nancy Reagan and the frying pans and the whole 9 yards, and then they tell you later, they're like, well, we don't know.
Man, I remember people were smashing light bulbs and putting it in the weed.
Right. Just remember, all the while there was a patent held by the United States government that said and declared that cannabis was medicine. Right. While they're shaking everybody down and shooting dogs and crazy shit.
Right. And yeah. And so that's a huge thing. And it's really funny that you would bring up. So are you a dog guy?
We both are.
Okay. I'm a huge dog guy. I rescue kids. And so if you hear it's Detroit and there's a pit bull in the room and it's around the 4th of July. So if fireworks go off, we might get rudely interrupted by my dog Diesel. So,
Diesel's a good name for a dog. That's the name I wanted to give a dog if I had a male dog.
Oh, listen, don't do it because then they snore like one. If you,
I like that.
I don't know who did that. I don't know if I cursed myself or if I just called it preemptively. But yeah, he snores like a diesel, and I promised him that I would talk about him on the podcast. So I hope that this makes the edit.
Yeah, it will, for sure.
Shout out to Detroit Diesel. Yeah, so you're a no-till grower. Who's the no-till guy?
I am trying to be.
You are trying.
Yeah, I'm doing my first run right now. I bought the grassroots fabric raised beds, and I bought the 4x8s. I ended up planting, I have 2 church in there, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more. And I did my mix using a combination of used Pro Mix and that I had already really flushed and aged for over a year. I used the large lava rocks. I used the Hydroton. I used a bunch of down-to-earth amendments. The booze blend, the big bags of booze blend. bought that, the worm castings, and what else did I add in there? I don't know, some other shit. So it's interesting for me to be able to talk to you because you have what most organic growers are already looking for, which is, hey, I just want to get this going. I don't want to age this. I don't want to do all this other stuff. I want to get started right now. And I want to know that I'm not going to burn my plants and I'm not going to run out of juice. So it's interesting for me to learn.
So listen, I'm going to tell you, it's funny that you bring that up, and you haven't cut me off because I'll dominate the conversation. I'm a talker. So, so early on in the living soil thing, it's not easy to sell. You would think it would be. It just makes sense, but it doesn't do well for bottle sales. So when you're trying to sell it through stores, the store's like, I don't want to sell that. Luckily we got really, really lucky. Like I said, with Ultra Green over there, they gave us a shot. They put us out, and so people could try it. But a lot of people didn't want to try it. They were worried it was, that people would be turned off of other stuff. And I'm like, there's so many organic amendments. There's so many organic additives. Like, come on. So we finally got it going, and I can't remember what I was going to tell you. I did like 2 big dabs before.
Okay, so let me take over then. What I would say is this: is that when Justin and I created this show, we wanted to spotlight people in Michigan, whether they are a business or whether they're a person or a member of the community or a grower, somebody who knows the laws, everything like that. We've tried to shine a spotlight for people that listen to our show and say, hey man, if you're from Michigan, check out these people, check out these companies. That's what we do. So you say that if we're not careful, you'll dominate the talk. Brother, it's my show. I don't care. People will hear me next week. They've only got you for this one time right here. So I want you to feel like you have the opportunity to drive this wherever you want to go with it, man. You had mentioned before that you had started a nonprofit organization, which we're going to get into that as well. But what I would ask to start it all off is, what got you into growing your own?
So, the truth is, a good friend of mine. So, we used to grow behind, when we were in high school, we used to grow behind my friend Jay Palmer's house. I don't know. I think he's dead, so I think I could say that. Sorry, Jay. I don't want to get you in trouble with your mom.
Rest in peace.
we used to grow behind their garage down the street, and then I didn't do anything for a number of years, and then went right when it got legal here in the city, we started doing it again indoors. A friend of mine said, hey, we're gonna go get our card and we're gonna start growing wheat. I was like, all right. He was a really good friend of mine. I just kind of went along with most of the stuff they said. So we went down. You had to go to Monroe when they first started the program. Like, there was a chiropractor down there that would write you a card, prescription. Nobody back then was writing cards. And so we went down and we got our cards, and I built a grow room with some old HPSs and metal halides and we did it because we smoked weed, and now we could. It was one of those things where you'd never thought about it. You had forgotten about that hustle. It was
Sure.
Because it was just Mexican outdoor when we were kids.
Yeah.
And you would get
the dirty brown, man, the dirty brown.
Yeah, we were busy doing other stuff, for a few years. And so when we got back into indoor, it was like, oh man, we could do this. And these were selling for $350, $400. And so these guys were like, hey, Tommy, man, why aren't we doing this? You're smart. So we built it. I built a room, and so I ran. The first nutrient I ran was iguana juice, I think, indoor. Then I was doing Pro Mix and iguana juice one run, and I was like, yeah, man, I'm going to go back to doing soil. I've talked to, you know what I mean? We did soil in outdoors. We knew about soil. I worked on a potato farm when I was a kid. And so I just started chasing down that corridor. And then, then I got into the worm casting business. And once you're in that, it was a really short trip. You know what I mean? And so, I don't know, we did a handful of runs, probably using advance like everybody else to get our feet wet.
So do you have a personal strain that you grow for your own medicine, or are we just going for high yield and terps and things like
So
that?
I don't grow anything. I don't grow anything for yield.
Okay.
And you know why? I'm lucky. I don't have to.
Right.
So like, and people and guys say that, and I don't mean to be that guy, but that's just the truth, man. I'm not a weed seller. That's not how I make my money now. I sell dirt, you know.
Look at it
I
like
explained
this.
this to somebody today. I said, you know, when you can smoke as much as you want, you don't need 30% stuff.
Right.
You know?
Right.
I think of it
And
as in types of coffee. Okay, so I can go buy some really cheap coffee, and I can get a whole bunch of it. It's going to be a great yield of coffee, right, for my dollar. But is it good coffee? Do I really like it, or am I just going for, I got to have coffee? I would rather spend my money on a better kind of coffee. And just like with cannabis, I mean, yeah, I could go find the old downtown Julie Brown, from back in the day, but
Or you have
you were happy when you could find somebody that had that green. You know
Right.
what I mean? That was the difference back in the 90s. Was, is it brown or is it green?
Right. Right. Yeah,
Man, if the bar was still that low.
and unfortunately, in a lot of places, that's still the difference. Sometimes when you go to, I hit a lot of states, and sometimes when you get to other states, you're like, oh, no. I'm not going to stay for the smoke session. I'm just going to head back to Michigan.
I wanted to name specific states, but we have listeners in all of them, so I'm just gonna not.
Oh yeah,
I'm with you guys. Yeah.
hey
Man, you know what though? Whatever else, it's still better than nothing. It's got to be, unless it's sprayed with some crazy stuff that's going to kill you. But come on.
The truth is, I'll tell you this, man. Like I get all over, and I get to some places where it's still pretty not cool to have it, and I get to talk to growers in those places, and I'll tell you, there's guys growing fire there too. I mean, they got YouTube there too.
Yep, we know that. Yeah. And the
Yeah.
only way to get away from that terrible pesticides and all of that stuff is to grow your own, man.
Right.
And that's what the listeners of this show are doing exactly.
And so that was the whole thing. And that was the thing right from the beginning I'll tell you, when I got tied in with IDK, those guys are organic like nuts, And so it just became it became such a search for clean meds. Listen, those guys, the catatonic cut came in, the IDK Eric up there, the breeder, his sister has that, where you have the seizures. And so he's making medicine for his family, and when you're doing that,
shout out to him for that, man.
Yeah.
Shout out to him.
Yeah. You can't be pumping, Eagle 20 in your grow and and so IDK, that was the whole basis. And that's why catatonic was the winner, because that's where the focus was. And
you have the famed Perkins cut.
Yeah, and it was the Perkins cut of catatonic. And listen, and I want to tell you guys, since we're on this medicine subject, I'm a little bit passionate about that part of it.
Dude, I'm glad you said that, because that's me in a nutshell, man. I was talking to a friend today, and I said, you know what sucks, man? I said, I feel like that there's two different kinds of people out there now. There's people that are in it for the wreck, and then there's people that are still in it for the medicine. And I'm not saying that one is better than the other, but you have to agree that the directions go a little bit different for each path. And I'm concerned about losing the opportunity to keep some of these heirloom genetics around that really have helped people. So with you keeping, like I said, that Perkins cut, that's been around, man. That's not something new. That's been around. So, it's saved for a reason.
It came with Russ.
But it was worth saving too.
Yeah, and he saved it, and yeah, and so we're talking about medicine, and there's a guy on Instagram. It's I can't believe it's not butter. So I then canna believe it's not butter, and if you check his stuff out, he does like ghee capsules. So I don't know if you know that, it's where they remove the fatty acids from milk. So that way, when these guys
the old Indian style,
yeah, and when these guys are making medicine, they're not putting it in candy. You know, they're not, they're 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 making clean meds that are insecticide and chemical free, and then they're using the processes that actually fight cancer and fight disease. Everything with that team is really medical based. And when you start looking at that, and if you're, I mean, so I'm going to say some stuff here. Some of my friends in the circle, these guys are Native American dudes, man, and they think different than everyone else. And if you can get down with that, it's beneficial to you. You know what I mean? And so these guys are plant-based dudes, and they believe the cure is in the ground, right? And so everything is organic. And they taught me a lot, man. They taught me a lot about the plant, and they taught me a lot about how the plant's cultivated. If you remember the plant in the process, you know what I mean. If you remember the organic aspects of it.
And what I would say, and something for somebody to remember, is that you can either focus on the product, or you can choose to focus on the patient. It's up to you.
Right.
I mean, the two do overlap, a clean product and a great, thing for a patient. But, we're talking earlier about yields and stuff like that. That's a legitimate thing. I get it. You got to supply the rec market. But at the same time, we also have to make sure, like I said, you got to focus on that patient, man. You're a caregiver. You can't just grow shit because it yields well. You have patients. You need to supply them with the medicine that they need to get well, man, or be well.
Whenever I hear, so you get that question, and we promote constantly. It's as you're always out there, and you guys. I mean, I did a bunch of background. I was listening to your podcast all day. You guys talk to a lot of people. You get out there, and so you know how it goes.
That's the world.
And when you talk to people, and they come up, they come up to you, and the first question that comes out of their mouth is yield, or the first thing they talk about is yield. And the picture in my mind is this guy didn't smoke pot till it was cool. You know what I mean? Like, this guy's in it for the money. He's not in this. He's not part of it. Like, generally, the scene people have bigger interests. I mean, like you said, you got to keep in mind there's a yield aspect to it. But the scene people, I think, understand the medicine. They understand flavor. They understand quality. And those guys were fighting it for years. I mean, we all learned this. We all learned all the details of it at the same time, and so and everybody would just wanted to be better, and they wanted to be cleaner, and they wanted to help their sick friends, and that goes right back to the Michigan community. I mean, Michigan's just a big small town. There's a lot of people that are really related, and if you talk to a guy in Kalamazoo, he's down with some folks in Lansing that are down with some folks in Alpena that know some folks in Gaylord. And then those people all truck with some dudes in Escanaba. You know what I mean? Like, that's just how it goes.
Big, small town. I really like that.
Yeah. And because it's got a great community.
Dude, we're stealing that from you.
Oh, you feel free, man. But yeah, and everybody's related, and everybody's trying to help each other. I mean, there's some pirates. There's pirates everywhere. But that's, you know what, man? You can't dwell on that. You know what I mean? You just got to be like, you got to remember how good we got it. I mean, even as far as how the programs rolled out in states, boy, we got 72 on our cards, and we got 24 in a two-person household rec. Nobody has that. You know what I mean? We're super lucky here, and they didn't sell it out. I mean, I feel like Illinois maybe did better by expunging some criminal records. We need to get there. I think Dana Nessel and Gretchen Whitmer are on the job, though. I mean, you saw what Dana Nessel did on the civil forfeiture aspect of the law. So now they can't take.
Tell my listeners, because they might not have.
Oh yeah, so Dana Nessel is the Attorney General for the state of Michigan. She just won in November. And I'll tell you, we supported her. Jamie Lowell worked on her campaign, and Jamie Lowell's a good friend of ours and should be a good friend of every one of your listeners because
follow Jamie if you don't.
What's that?
I said follow Jamie if you don't. He's a huge cannabis advocate here in Michigan. We follow him at the show, and you should definitely support him too.
Yeah, Jamie Lowell and Rick Thompson, both excellent freedom fighters, and they both they introduced us to Dana Nessel, and so we support her a little bit. We sent some money, and I think we did a fundraiser for her. We did some fundraisers for MI Legalized. But when Dana Nessel got in, that was the 1-2 punch. Listen, we got wrecked. Then we changed the rules, so they can't come after your kids. They can't come after your, and then she gets the law, so now they can't take your property without convicting you of a crime. It used to be, and your average citizen didn't know that. Only drug dealers knew that. You know what I mean? Like
Civil forfeiture.
Yeah.
Yep.
They could take your property and never have to convict you of a crime, and they just kept it. And so the Attorney General for the state of Michigan and our governor, Gretchen Whitmer, changed that law. So now they have to convict you of a crime. It's it's little things like that where our community just keeps improving in the right direction. If anything, you can guarantee this will be the first state in the Midwest to follow the lead of Denver and Oakland, California. So this Michigan.
I saw your post today.
What's that? Yeah,
I saw your post today.
Yeah, Detroit will be the first decrim Midwest city for psilocybin. You watch. We're on a roll. I hope that we stay after it. So I just think that we've got a lot of great guys. And just to go back, like you said, if you don't follow Jamie Lowell, you should. Rick Thompson, you should follow him. And keep an eye on Dana Nessel and Gretchen Whitmer because they're doing big things for us. They're fighting for the people. They took back Laura. She got rid of Don Bailey. These were all positive steps. So, this is just a great time to live in the mitten. Especially if you're done with weed. If you don't like the smell of weed, not a great time to live in the mitten.
No. You go for a night bike ride through the neighborhoods, man, and sometimes you'll be going down the block like, oh shit, that smells good. You go like maybe 2 houses down and you're like, damn, is that another house that's growing? People are just blowing straight out of the side of the house, man.
But damn, I didn't know Steve was growing.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's awesome. And then you sit down and you're like, hey man, I didn't know you smoked weed. And the dude's like, oh man, I was smoking weed for 25 years. I didn't know,
It's that cloak of darkness shit, man. If you weren't on the inside, man, if you weren't part of the cipher, you just weren't. Because you would, lose jobs, or if you were in school, somebody would snitch on you and get, nobody's trying to go through all that shit, man. But
right.
It is a great time in the state, and I like it because we have shown responsible ownership of this. All of the big bugaboo fears that they always had about, well, if you let these guys have medical, you know what's going to happen, and then that wasn't proven to be true. So then they came along with the recreational, they're like, oh, well, you know what's going to happen, no, and it's not true. But we do have an access problem for recreational users in the state that really does need to be addressed. And I'm just, I'm spitballing off the cuff on this, but it's a shame because they can't go to the dispos right now. If I'm not mistaken, if I am, please correct me.
Right, they can't.
So where are they getting access to this recreational cannabis?
They're dude.
Well, I know, but doesn't it seem like the state would like to get that kind of tax money, and so to make it easy access to people? Because you said earlier, what is Michigan made up of? Big little towns, right? So
right.
You don't have the networking is coming together now, but it's still a fledgling network that is going to take a couple more years. It's nice because we can smoke a lot of different people's cannabis right now, and we can get a feel for, if you're a medical user, you can get a feel for what might work for you. You're like, oh man, I tried this like Moonwalker Kush, man, that shit slid me right out and did me right. So now you're thinking like, well, I wonder if I can get a cut from that guy, because it's not coming as a Cali pack like it would have been 15, 20 years ago, or even maybe 10 years ago.
Right.
It's local grown, man. Support homegrown.
And I'm going to tell you, so every other house in Michigan has 3 tomato plants on their deck or the patio or in the garden with some cucumbers. And so, and people have plants in their windows and aloe plants. And there's a lot of gardeners, a lot of plant people in Michigan. And just to get back, I mean, at Detroit Nutrient Company, I adopted a saying from BFG Supply, is my distributor. One of the guys there, I was talking to him, and he said, "Tommy, in nurseries, man, we just try to tell them, we just want you to grow anything. Just grow something, as long as you're growing something." And so when you drive around or you go to your friend's house and they got 10 aloe plants and a cacti and like 5 cacti, and you're looking around, you go, man, so over the next 10 years, you're going to see that marijuana plant everywhere. You're going to see every house because that stigma's changed. Every house is going to have 3 plants in a tent in the basement, or they're going to have at least an outdoor grow. I mean,
I would love to do outdoor, man. I really would, because if it get to the point where if everybody has it like the tomato plants, I don't worry about people jumping over my back fence and taking my fucking tomatoes. I've never had it happen. You know what I mean? And I don't live in the best place of all, but I would like to get to the point where, it could just be like it was always intended to be, just kind of there if you needed it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Why not seed the side of the highway for it?
Well, so these dudes were telling me, this is a long time ago, I was talking to some guys from Pennsylvania, and man, there's some fire growers in Pennsylvania, and a lot that have come out of there. But I was talking to these guys about growing in PA, and they were telling me, I don't know if you've ever done a lot of driving in PA. I do. And in between the highways, like when you're on the turnpike, you have that big wooded section in between the 2 sides of traffic. There's full of gorilla grows in Pennsylvania. That's where everybody would go put their grows, because nobody owned it. And somebody would drop you off, you'd go down, take care of your plants, and then you'd walk back out. Nobody's going on nature hikes or hunting in those things.
Dude, so in Ohio, it was all about people planted all those gorilla grows all along the fucking train tracks and shit around Circleville and Chillicothe and areas. Anybody in Ohio, shout out to them. You know what I'm saying? If you're listening, I'm aware. Athens County down in Ohio was huge for that. One of the things about Pennsylvania I always dug when we drove through it before was I always seemed to go through there at nighttime. When you're going through and you hit that big tube that goes through the mountain, you know what I mean? When you're flying down, I think that's I-70, isn't it?
Yep.
I believe it is, yeah. It's always kind of cool, and the problem was, 25 years ago when I went through there before, my then wife was coming to pick me up at the airport. I was in the Army, so she was driving from Cincinnati out to Philadelphia to pick me up, and she was flying through through Pennsylvania, and this is when the speed limit was 55. She was doing 90. I said, "Oh, that was a hell of a fucking ticket back in the day."
Oh yeah. They don't mess around in PA, because it's super dangerous through there too. It's the mountains. I think the last time I was going through there was I saw a semi that was basically turned to a pile of ash on the other side of the road, and you just forever see I don't know, the deer just play only on the freeway in Pennsylvania.
West Virginia too, man. West Virginia with the crazy fogs and the hairpin turns and all that crazy stuff. Oh man.
Yeah. And I get to go down there. There's a ton of, and so I'm going to switch gears on you here a little bit. So in North Carolina, man, they got their hemp program together first. I don't know. They were doing the Farm Bill passed, and the next day I was talking to guys, I feel and they were like, yeah, we got our license in North Carolina. And so there's huge, I know a couple of fire growers in North Carolina, and I'll tell you, the hemp scene, all the tobacco farmers, that's going to be the savior of the old tobacco plantation, is going to be that hemp. They're just blowing it up down there, and they're blowing it up here. And it's killing. And when you talk about doing outdoor grows, the funny thing is, about half of the big outdoor growers I knew from last year, when I called them and said, "Hey, are you going to do your big outdoor?" They were like, "Tommy, we're going to do 8 acres of hemp instead." You know what I mean? And so you're seeing this. I really believe that the hemp attitude and the open borders on the hemp bill, because now you can actually carry THC across state lines if it's in hemp. I think that is going to play heavily into that stigma that we talked about changing also. Are you coughing on mute?
I was coughing. Yeah, I'm always coughing on mute, but I wanted to say, you seem to talk to a bunch of people from all around the country. Are you distributing your product all over? You know, the Great Lakes Living Soil?
Yes, yeah, we sell Great Lakes water only. We sell it. It's available everywhere in the nation. We sell it. Colorado, Oklahoma, California, as far north as Maine, south as Florida, Michigan, Ohio, Pennsylvania, all through there. We do a ton in like Delco, Connecticut. I was just out in Connecticut. It's still against the law in Connecticut. They they can't grow weed, and and so you go there and you've been in Michigan. Like I spend all my time in Michigan and I talk about everything. And when I'm at grow stores, like I don't know, I'm pretty cool with a lot of people, so they let me get away with a lot. And I'll be talking about smoking weed and doing hallucinogens and aliens and tidal waves and all kinds of stuff. And then you get to Connecticut and they're like, well, we got to call it tomatoes. We have to talk about the type of tomato. Literally, you can only do that for about 5 minutes after you've been living in Michigan, through this whole thing. It just comes out of me and my mom talk about weed. You know what I mean? Like, I talk to cops about weed. So when you go somewhere and try not to talk about it.
So let's shift the gears back. We were talking about availability. Where can I find it in Clinton Township?
So Clinton Township, like, we're at over at George's Eden's Hydro. Is that Clinton Township?
I don't know what it's at.
Yeah, there's Eden's Indoor Garden. We're at all the HTGs, like the HTG Roseville and HTG Troy. I'm not really sure.
I got to get to that one in Roseville, man. I've never been there, but I've actually shopped online with them, and I really liked they sell every damn thing. So.
I'll tell you what, those guys, HTG took me in really early at that store, my casting. And those guys are super knowledgeable, man. Like, they work really hard. They work really hard to put good guys in there. Andy at that Roseville store.
Where is the Roseville store anyway?
12 in Groesbeck.
12 in Groesbeck. Right on. I'm going to have to get over there, man. Good looking out.
I'll tell you, Andy's a great guy, man. And they'll hook you up. And yeah, man. And yeah, so we're pretty much everywhere in the nation. We're all over the state. I mean, generally there's a HTG or a Horizon in every town, in Michigan. So, or close by, we're at all the big hydro stores. We're at Growco out there in Grand Rapids, the Big Green Tomato stores, and now Nick's everywhere. Big Green Tomatoes everywhere too, So
since we're focusing on the product, tell me, I'll just do a couple of quick questions here. First and foremost, you said that your soil is made up of what? Like your base ingredients, you have cow manure?
So the base is Canadian sphagnum peat. You know what I mean? The majority of the product is a peat-based product. So then you mix in cocoa, ground bark, perlite for aeration. And then we put in 3 types of manures. We got chicken steer and milker cow, manure. And all of our ingredients are organic. So since we have all organic inputs, I don't have an OMRI certification, but it's all organic inputs, so it's an organic product.
So let me ask the rookie question then. So my first thing would be, is this a hot soil? Is it going to burn my plant when I, transplant into it?
Okay, so let's start from the beginning on the difference between super soil and living soil. I was listening back to the Spartan Grown podcast. Listen, I'm pretty sure I was the guy that got Spartan Grown on living soil, and I think he said it on your podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and so when he kind of touched on this, and I think there's a better way to explain it. So living soil. This is going to be a little long-winded. It's going to take a minute, but it's the explanation. Okay. So in like 1912, they realized that we can't organically feed the world. We were over 1 billion people, and you can't feed the world. Couldn't sustain that organically. So they had to start stabilizing nitrogen. And then in the 50s or the 40s, we came up with the NPK program. And that's how everybody else has grown. And that's basically trying to just use nitrogen, potassium, and phosphorus but there's a lot that's missing in that. There's a lot of little tiny pieces and parts that your plant doesn't take up, and nitrogen that's not derived organically actually creates thinner cell walls inside of plants. So this is how plants were grown until we had to start synthesizing um, uh, fertilizers. And so when you're using living soil, when you're using like liquid nutrients, you're attaching the nutrient to a hard salt. You're just breaking down these natural things in nature into macro and micronutrients. Then you attach it to a hard salt, and that hard salt drives it through the plant root, because the plant root is like a cork kind of substance. And when you drive it through there, you force the macro and micronutrients into the plant, and then the plant is forced then to uptake them, and that supplies them with the food that they require, right? So that's why when you water, every time you water, you're pushing now these hard salt filled macro and micronutrients into your plant roots. Now, when you're in living soil, the soil itself has microbes in it, microbiology, and that's what the manure is. That's the 3 types of manure. And as you moisten those microbes, they begin to break down the amendments, and they create plant available nutrients at the root level for the plant. Those nutrients the plant takes up. It's not being forced into the plant. So as it's creating these nutrients, it's what your plant naturally wants to take up. Your plant takes it in and then expels the byproducts of photosynthesis, which includes some sugars. When those sugars go back into the soil, those sugars supercharge the microbiology in the soil. They start to eat more of the amendments and create more nutrients. So your plant can take up more nutrients and get larger. And then as the plant grows, the plant knows everything in its genetic makeup knows that it has to reproduce and die, right? Every living thing, that's your jobs. And so you're eating, reproducing, and dying. So as you water, the microbiology breaks down the nutrients, plant uptakes them, and it goes through its plant life. And then when it gets to the end of its life, it stops taking up the nitrogen. It starts taking up the parts that it wants to build flowers. It uses stored energy because as it's reproducing, it's also dying. So it sucks in the chlorophyll out of the plant leaves, or it sucks in the energy out of the plant leaves, and creates flowers and sap, which is cannabis oil, collect pollen and die. So how living soil doesn't burn plants is because nothing is being forced into it. It's not available until that symbiotic relationship breaks down the material, right? Does that make sense? Are you following me?
I absolutely do follow you, and I like the way that you're putting this together, because the whole thing about the roots like a cork, I've never heard that before, but that totally makes a really good visual in my mind to think about what's going on. I come from, when I started doing this, I was using a 3-part series, the General Hydroponics, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I get NPK and stuff like that. I've done a lot of different things. I've always experimented with my gardens. And so now I'm at this point where I see that the way forward for me is to go organically and to try to figure out how I'm going to mix my bed to be able to sustain the plants, and then try to figure out, after I get done harvesting those, what I'm going to need to re-amend that soil with. Like, when will I need to replant a cover crop? And you know what I mean? Because I'm using a 4x8 bed, so I'm going to be cutting these out, shaking the dirt out of them, and then cutting up all of the branches and things like that to put back into the bed, because I have worms in my bed. So hopefully the whole thing is to get it going, and I don't know. It's the plants are happy that are in there now. I know I'm not doing it efficiently, or rather well, because I'm having a few issues with like a nitrogen, where I didn't use as much feather meal as I should have for that longer. I used more of the blood meal issue, which was the quicker nitrogen. And I use teas, and that's all I do, is I use either water or teas that I make.
Right. So I use blood meal. They when it comes to no-till beds, I will tell you this: I'm not the expert.
Right.
So I understand them. The re-amending process is tricky because it's specific to every strain. From what my understanding is, because it's going to deplete different parts of the soil at different rates on the no-till. But I mean, if you do your average living soil, will keep going as long as you just keep re-amending it and topping it with your basic worm castings, some alfalfa meal, and you're hitting it with teas. I mean, you're just keeping it going. You keep recharging those microbes.
How do you feel about malted barley and like the enzyme whole thing from that? If you you know what I'm saying, where you make the aerated.
Yeah. So listen, I'll tell you with the malted barley, and my problem is this. Since I heard about malted barley, we we sell dirt in every state of the nation. And so I'm going to be honest with you. I don't get to experiment as much as I'd like to anymore. So a lot of what I'm going to tell you on some of the newer, on some of the no-till and the long-term, like the Korean methods and stuff, is secondhand knowledge, things I've learned from guys that I've met. Right. So the malted barley, I don't know if you're on, I don't know if you follow Paisley Acres. You specifically should. Paisley Acres is a good friend of mine. He's based out of the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, up by right in the middle of the UP, and he does he introduces me to a lot of biodynamic ideas. And if you it should be the top one. Yeah, the top one is Paisley Acres, I believe. I can send you a screenshot of it when we're done, too.
I really like what you've had to say so far. I've enjoyed having you on here and what you've had to say about your products and what you're doing. I was wondering if you wanted to maybe introduce us to your nonprofit.
Yeah. So listen. So I'm the luckiest person you've ever met in your life, right? Like I was just hooking a dude up with some weed, and he was like, "Hey, man, you want to sell worm castings?" And look at me now. You know, I I just get lucky at every juncture, every turnaround. That looks like him? Yes. I get lucky at every juncture, at every turnaround. When the sun shines, it shines on me. And when you live that way, you have to give back, or God will get you, or the universe will get you, whatever you believe in. Something will come back for you. You can't just be that lucky and be a dick. And so what we did was we started working with a large cultivation in on the west side of the state called Harbor Farms, and they're just fire growers. And in the conversation, much like like we were just talking about re-amending soil, you can't. So if you sell somebody living soil and then they're going to go on another run, if you go to just re-amend it and get it going back for them, you can't certify it or stand behind it. You would have to literally test everything, haul in all the new amendments, do all the mixing on site, everything. It's actually easier, cheaper, and more effective to bring in new soil. So you're going to have dump trucks full of soil that has one run on a grow in it, and it's full of plant available organic material. And so I said, well, we could donate that to community gardens. So we started a nonprofit in order to basically haul the soil around from the big cultivations that we work with. We're gonna and haul them back to these community gardens, so we can donate and give back here in the city. Also, along that track, as the Great Lakes Water Only Company, as the Detroit Nutrient Company, we have worked with a bunch of schools, and we work with Hope Gardens out of Byron Center near Grand Rapids, and we donate soil to them and have for several years for classes. They teach kids about gardening. We've worked with some schools up by Flint. We've done some stuff here in Detroit. We did nonprofit work with the Eastern Market Corporation. So I just said, hey man, I want to let's make it so we can give more and more back. I want to teach kids how to grow. I want to teach kids about aquaponics and the exciting part of growing. I want to give back to these community gardens. We got our start selling worm castings before I was in any stores, before anybody knew who I was. I'd sell worm castings at community gardens. So like the community gardens, the Eastern Market Corporation nonprofit would go to like these community gardens in deeply impoverished neighborhoods in Detroit. Like, and this was like recession, like this was like no joke, no exaggeration. The Red Cross truck is pulling up to these events and handing out free food to the people, like this kind of stuff. And these community gardens are selling kale and fruit and vegetables to people that live in essential food deserts, which I don't know if you are familiar with any of that. This is a huge problem. If you're here, like where our office is in Detroit, you can't buy vegetables. You can buy potato chips, you can buy Wrap Snacks and Funyuns, you can buy Faygo, but you can't buy fruit juice. I mean, Dave Chappelle does a joke about it with how white kids have great juice and black kids have great drink. And when you're here in Detroit, especially then, it was worse. These people just didn't have any access to healthy food. And so we got our start working in these community gardens with all these great people. And I thought, well, man, we got to give something back. We got to give a little love back to my city. And, luckily Detroit has turned around. I don't know if there's any poor people left, but I'll find some poor people to give the dirt to. All the poor people are moving out of this city. I don't know where they're going, but yeah, so that's what
I
we
really
do.
love that, man. I love what you're doing.
Hey, so the other end of that is we want to do some Paul Stamets, like recover soil using mushrooms and that kind of stuff. But that's at the far end after I hire somebody to run my company, because you just can't. I'm just running out of hours in the day. You know what I mean? You can only be in so many places at one time. But yeah, we try.
That's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man. Like there was a time when I worked a lot harder for a lot less. So
tell the listeners what size your soil comes in as far as cubic feet, and then what the cost they can expect is on that.
So generally, you're looking between 21 and 20, like between 20 and 21 bucks a bag. Normally, online and retails shipped to your house, it's like 29, something like that. Actually, not something like that. That's what it is. So generally around 20 bucks a bag. It's a cubic foot bag. That's 7.5 gallons for the people that don't know that. I recommend a 7-gallon pot. A lot of living soils recommend more. You can do it in 7 gallons if you're doing, 90, 100-day grow, that kind of stuff. If you're going to go long, if you want to go a little bit bigger pot. And I'd like to, like I said, we're pretty much everywhere, wherever you're at, your grow store, every town has, a grow store or two. If you're in a town with two, if we're not at one, we're at the other. So we're pretty easy to find. Our phone number is on every bag. It's a huge difference between us and any product. So the phone that I'm actually doing this podcast on, that's in my pocket 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the phone number on the bag of Great Lakes Water Room.
What is that number for the listeners in case they can't find a bag to call you and they want to get it in their store? Besides name dropping you to whoever's running the shop, if they want to reach out to you, what is your actual Instagram and what is the number that you want these people to contact you at?
All right. So our Instagram is Detroit_nutrient_company. My website is www.detroitnutrientcompany.com. My email address is Tommy@DetroitNutrientCompany.com. and my phone number is 313-768-8435. Now, I will tell you this, we don't sell direct. So, like, don't call me and say, hey, man, I don't want to go through my store. I want to save a few bucks. I want to get it directly from you. The thing is, these stores, that's a good faith agreement you get into with these stores. They go there and stay there all day long, 10 hours a day, 7 days a week, keep the lights turned on. So you guys
don't undercut them.
Yeah. And so for me to go and start going behind their back, man, that's just not cool. It's just not a cool thing for me to do. It's not cool for you to ask me to do it. So let's just not go there. You know, like, obviously for you guys, if you want to try some stuff, I'll just mail you some stuff and you can run it. I don't know if you got your bag.
I do. I want to try the worm castings.
What's that?
I want to try the worm castings because I use those quite frequently, and I've gone through a couple of different brands, and there's some that I like that I prefer that I'm using right now. It's like $30 a bag. I don't want to use the company's name because I don't think they're from Michigan, so and I don't remember what it is anyway. Anyway, it's like a red bag, man. But you know, I know that you can't just, well, I mean, you can, but you really want to buy a quality casting because that is going to show in the grow. You know what I mean? So don't just buy the shit that the Miracle Grow crap. I mean, hey, man, if that's all you got, that's all you got, man. But if you can afford to buy a better quality worm casting, keep looking. And that's what I want to look at yours. So that's cool, man. Thanks.
Yeah, man, I'll send you some out. Listen, I want to tell you about worm castings and what the hell the difference is. So this goes into let's walk back a minute. And I was talking to you about food deserts, and there's a guy in Wisconsin. I can't remember his name. He does organic workshops, and he does workshops on worm castings. And for the life of me, I keep wanting to say Wilt Chamberlain. So, but that wasn't it. I'll think of the guy.
Your meds are working, bro.
What's that?
I said your meds are working.
Yeah. So, yeah. So, anyway, so he does these classes on worm castings, and the truth is, worm castings and people, there's a difference. And when we started selling worm castings, the funny thing is nobody would switch from the crappy ones. So there's this company that was around forever, and everybody used them until I came along. And when I would go to grow stores, they would go, "Ah, man, they're not going to switch off this. They've been using that forever. You can't unmarry them from the product." And I was like, "Well, let's take some." So I literally started teaching classes and writing articles for magazines about worm castings. Not an easy task to keep entertaining, right? And we started doing the tea workshops, and that's really how I got into the AAC teas and how I started teaching people how to make them.
We have to cover that because that's what I'm doing, and I'm getting great results from what I'm doing, but I've gone through like all kinds of internet and YouTube and stuff like that, and I've copied other people's recipes, but I love listening to people when they tell me how they make their tea, and there's always a little bit of a difference, man, but I dig it. It's about as sciencey as I get because I'm the science dumb dude. I'm just the happy-go-lucky guy, man.
So listen, yeah. Well, let me finish on the worm castings, and then I'll get into the teas. So here's the difference in worm castings. If you're looking for them, if you're a soil builder, or if you're making teas, you want a good casting, and the reason being this, and this is what a good tea is, or a good worm casting is. Some of it is diet. So we feed our worms bone meal and bone meal and blood meal, and I think cornmeal. We have three major ingredients that we have a standard operating procedure with a specific diet. So every bag you grab has the same test results. And I mean, it's going to vary slightly because it is a soil. But how you get there is this: when you pull the worms out, you want them to be eating their own castings. So you put worms into organic material, and then you feed them, and as they go through the organic material, if they're not back to eating their own castings, you haven't let them go long enough, and you don't have a full load of microbiology, right? So if I sell worm castings for a living and I want to maximize my profit, I could easily pull the worms out early, sell the castings, and no one would be the wiser. Which people that sell worm castings will do that. You like it just is done, because a lot of the people that sell castings, they'll use more than one farm to source their castings. So you want to get your castings from a single source company, like we're a single source company that has a standard operating procedure and that stands behind the fact that they don't pull their worms until they're eating their own casting. That's how you look for a good casting. That's what makes a good casting. Other than making them at home, you know what I mean? That's what you want to look for. There's great companies here in Michigan. I believe we are one of the best. There's another really good brand here. I'm not going to tell you the name. But they do really good castings. You'd never have to buy them from another state. I'll tell you the name in an email later.
Okay. Now, what size bag can I get of your castings, and how much are those?
So our castings we sell in a 25-pound bag. They sell at $18, $19 a bag. So, like I said, man, I'll send you one out. You got to check out our cast. If you haven't done them yet, I don't know what area you guys are in, but if you can make it out we're going to be at, I'm going to be at Horizon in Kalamazoo doing with the Grow Pro guys. I don't know if you've met these guys. They're great dudes. And they're like a consulting company that works with Horizon out there. And we teach a class. It just goes over the fundamentals of environmentals, lighting, that kind of stuff. And then I talk about organics. So if you get out on Saturday, if you can make it out, I'll give you a bag. Stop in and see me. I'll give you a shirt.
No, man, I'm really far. I'm on the east side, man.
Oh, that's right. You said you're up by Clinton.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I'm going to be at that Roseville HTG like in September. I'm going to be at the Troy one in July. You have to come out.
Yeah,
You'll have to come out, and I want to talk to you about this too. So, okay, let's do teas, but I want to talk to you about rosin because I know.
Oh yeah, for sure, man. Hey, we can cover all of it, bro. That's like I said. That's the thing is, we want you to have the opportunity to talk about what you want to talk about. So get into it.
Oh, so listen. So on the teas, man, I have some really simple recipes. When you're in veg, I mean, I just do a basic inoculation tea, and that's just sugars and castings. So you're looking at a couple tablespoons of molasses and a couple cups of worm castings. Bubble it for 24 hours. The trick is, and I don't know if anybody's touched on this. I didn't hear it when people were talking about teas. When you're making these teas, man, air is king. When it goes anaerobic, it's gonna start killing your.
And you'll smell it. You'll know. It won't be that sweet smell. It won't smell like molasses anymore.
It smells like vomit.
Yes.
There's no there, and somebody told me that. They're like, "Oh, you'll know when it's not good because it smells like vomit." And the first time I smelled it, I was like, "Damn, they were right."
Yeah, I'm lucky because I don't have that problem. I use a Vortex brewer that I made in like a 10-gallon garbage can, and I have that hooked up to, I think it's an 1,100 gallon per hour, because I don't care about the heat that it generates, because heat in the tea is a good thing. I don't want to have a cold tea. I want to have a semi-warm tea. So I get bubbles a lot quicker, and I get a shit ton of them. And then I have another pump that I hook up, and I think that's a 570. And then I have like a DIY sort of bubble snake that I made that looks like a ring. All it is a T fitting, and it goes to the hose, and the hose goes right to the 570. And I've got the holes drilled all throughout the bottom of the ring so that I'm aerating that way as well. So that with the Vortex brewer, man, like massive amounts of air.
You're fine.
Yeah, because when I first started, I used to use those little shitty pop can style air stones, and like the General hydroponics pump that was like $60. You know, like when you first started growing, you know, that old pump they have. It's good. I can't remember how many liters per hour, but definitely if you're making teas, one of the most important things is you've got to get as much air as you possibly can. And the only other thing I'd say about it is if you're using a bag to keep all of your stuff in rather than, free floating it, make sure that if you have an air stone, drop it into that. Or if you're using a DIY, you want to aerate that bag as well, because you want to cycle that through.
If you're using air stones, don't be cheap and don't put it in a bag. The money you would spend on the bag you put it in, you could buy a new air stone. Put your organic material into the water, let it shake around, knock off the air stones, knock off the sides. You should be shaking that bucket every time you walk by it.
I agree 100%.
When you're using that tea, you should be reach your paw down in the bottom of that bucket, pull that slop out, and throw it on the top of that soil, especially in that no-till soil you got. That's great.
Always, man. Well, because when you look at the box, you'll see the numbers in it, like blood meal. Blood meal is like, I think it's 12%. The brand that I use is 12% nitrogen, right? And then there's a couple other numbers. I'm just off the top of my stoned head here. And I know that if I use it in a tea, only 4% is available. So at that point, it's the NPK would be a 4 rather than 12. But when I take that muck at the end and I throw that on the pile, not only is it going to continue to break down and stuff, but the worms are digging it. You're singing my song.
Right. Oh, yeah. Yep. Yeah. So, and that's it. And on the bloom teas, so a lot of people are doing fungal teas. If you're in that no-till bed, man, you're gonna have a great fungal web anyways, because you're not throwing it away. That's a huge advantage. And so on the compost teas, I do a pretty simple recipe. It's just basically 2/3 cup seabird, 2/3 cup bat, guano. It's half a cup alfalfa. I use a liquid fish and kelp. I still use organically done.
I do too. Yeah.
Hey, listen, that's a great fish and kelp product. If you can't get that, what's the East Coast Captain? I can't. There's something Harvest. Neptune's Harvest.
Neptune's Harvest is the one that I use, the white bottle. But I also use the one that's like the fish hydrolysate, and it's got molasses and kelp and everything in it. And I always add a little bit of that to my tea,
Yeah.
But I like hearing you say that you use the alfalfa, because that is important for the bloom tea.
No stacker. And then I use some worm castings in my compost tea, some molasses, and that's generally it. I throw a little bit of. So, listen, I don't really ever grow the same way twice that much. Like, I like to try different things. Like, we were talking about the malted barley and stuff. I wish I had more time, because the people I know, like the IDK guys, talk to me about malted barley. Paisley Acres talk to me about malted barley.
I'm fascinated about it, and I kind of like lightweight obsess about it, and I know it's stupid. It all started because I was listening to Keep It Simple, the Growing with Tad Hussey ones, and he was doing an interview with Clackamas Cute. It was like a 3-part thing, and right. He was talking about this malted barley, and I before that had been using Hygrozyme, which, if anybody doesn't know, it's kind of an expensive enzyme product. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I can pay $1.90 for this, 2-row malted barley, and I can get it where it's local to me because there's brewing stores, you know what I mean? So it's $1.90 a pound.
Right.
And I'm sitting right here with my coffee grinder. I can't pull it up, but I have that, and I have like a 3-gallon bucket of barley that I have, and I grind it up fresh, and then I bubble it for a couple hours. And I really dig it because the whole thing of enzymes. I know that enzymes are not a bad thing. So anything that I can learn about it, I'm always down to, man.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. You should reach out to Paisley Acres. Hit him up on that, because he's got. When it comes to biodynamics, I don't know if you drive on biodynamics at all, if you know about that, but it's like the planet holds many secrets, and if you understand this, because you're a soil guy, and if you get on it's a wormhole, man, and I'm warning you. if you're just crossing it over now, it's
hard for me, because I'm like a smart dude, but I'm science stupid, man. So when I get into this, you know, like I have like fibromyalgia and I have brain fog and shit. So I have like a hard time concentrating sometimes. And when I start getting into more of the in-depth things, I've tried watching, you know, a lot of people on this, but it starts getting to the point where it's like information overload for me. So I have to back off of it. And then I will come back to it maybe in a week or so and try to get back into it again. But like the knowledge barrier is what's holding me back, and that's cool, man, because there's a knowledge barrier when I started doing it the way I did initially. So it's up to me. If I want to have a better garden, I have to learn more. So that's why I love talking to people like you, man.
You go back to it. As long as you keep going back to it in a week, you're all right. Like the difference is the difference between successful people and failures is not that successful people get it right. They don't have knowledge barriers. Successful people keep going back a week later to give it another shot. You know, as long as you keep messing with it, you're killing it. You're doing so much better. And there's a lot of guys in this industry. And I'll tell you, there have been, when you talk to older guys that were doing it long before it was legal, and they were using some of the, you know, I love it. I love the advanced guys. Justin Advance is a great friend of mine. But some of these guys you talk to, you know, they've been growing for 35 years and they started out in advanced and they're still using advanced. And you go, hey, man, you ever think about using Living Stone? And they go, nope, I use advanced. That's it. And I know you have to know these guys. You know, like they have their one way they do it.
Well, there's a thing like in any industry, man, where like, here's a good example. You were talking about dogs in the very beginning of this program, so we're going to bring it back around to dogs. And I told you I was a dog trainer. So when I learned the old crash and bash system. You know, it was like training by a Vietnam veteran that used to train dogs. So, you know, like it was do it or else was kind of the thing. And then, you know, it was a problem because some dogs you could basically bully enough to get them to work. And then it was like, well, you know, it doesn't really listen that well to other people. Anyway, long story short, it's I don't know. People get stuck in certain ways of doing things. If it's a cookie cutter thing, and you'll see it a lot with commercial grows because they need that consistency for whatever reason they want it to be, and they don't like to step outside of their comfort zone. So they're not running new strains all the time. They want to find a couple of cash cow strains that they can just keep running perpetually and dialing that garden in. So when you make people come out of their comfort zone, it gets to be they get defensive. The thing is you're preaching to the choir because all three of us are garden tinkerers. Because it's just us, man. I'm not hurting anybody else. If I fuck it up, it's just fucking it up for me. You know, like, hey, man, I'm learning something, hopefully. And if I'm not, well, maybe I'll learn it the next time or the next time or the next time. But I just have to keep trying new shit.
It's a beautiful thing to be able to do that. It's a beautiful thing to not rely on it. It's a great thing for it to not be, to be able to screw up a garden. You know, like, I've given this a lot of thought. Hey, Tommy, man, I got a job at a grow. And it's like, okay, so now it's your job, dude. I mean, I never would want to work on motorcycles for money. My dad worked on motorcycles for money. I love to work on motorcycles. I would never want to do it for money because it would ruin working on motorcycles for me. And this is one of those jobs where it started out where, you know, you at one time it was more, I was more dependent on it than I am now, probably. But now you're just a tinkerer. And I think in this wreck, because you can screw it up, because if you don't, the electric bill still gets paid. There's another income to pay. You know, you're not like a big grow where, you know, $3 million electric bill every year they got to knock out or they're screwed and one harvest could kill them. So to have that fund, have that enjoyment, and I think with these new rat growers,
You're breaking up, bro.
In like I was saying earlier,
Yeah, you're breaking up really bad.
Yeah, by turning off the video, it should be better for you.
For that. All these people,
He's going to town, bro, and we're gonna have to edit all this, man. So we might as well just kick it amongst ourselves for a few minutes.
Hey, Tommy, we can't hear you, bro.
Dude, that's a nice joint. What is that? Is that the Skywalker or is that the Blueberry?
That's the Skywalker.
That's impressive.
Where am I at? Hold on.
Oh, you're back. Kinda.
No. Well, we got about 28 minutes left. Or less. Your plant's looking really good in my garden too, by the way.
Sweet, man. Hopefully it finishes well. Did you see how big mine are in our chat?
No, I didn't look at it today. My fucking shit went off so many times.
Fuck, they're huge, man.
Hell yeah. Dude, your grow's doing really well. Like it's
Did you
getting
see
better.
that Scrog?
Yeah.
Woo!
How do you feel about it?
Woo!
What? A lot of work, huh?
It looks so good, man.
Yeah. And how much was it to get the extra ones?
It was probably like $100 to do the whole Scrog. I need 9 more screws and I'm done.
9 more what?
9 more self-tappers.
Oh, fuck, dude. You always run out of self-tappers, no matter what.
Okay, 9 more, dude.
You suck, motherfucker. I know. Hey, I don't have it on half of my bed right now.
I bought 180 of them and I was 9 short.
What size did you buy on those so I kind of know what I'm looking for?
They're number
Can you guys
8
hear?
something. Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, cool. I'm back.
Yeah, we just took a little break. We lost you there, man.
Yeah. I don't know what I was talking about.
That's all good. Here's what I'm saying: it's 11.
It's what?
I was gonna say it's 11:30, so we try to wrap up by midnight. So we've got like half an hour to go if you've got it in you. But we want to make sure that you know that you've got the opportunity to take the conversation where you want to go, so we can shift gears and go with what you want to go.
All right. Yeah, so I want to get into this. So this is where we were when I lost you. We were just kind of going over getting out of the one way to grow. And I think I, as long as we're talking to your listeners, and I'm glad that I have a chance to say this, and I tell anybody that'll listen this is it's a ton of fun. There is so much to be seen, and it's such a great positive hobby. Do it as many ways as you can. Don't screw yourself out of the experience, and don't get yourself locked into one matrix of just trying to achieve the same success. You know, if you're gonna do it, have fun with it, because there's a ton of fun to be had. I think that if anybody that hasn't considered organics, you should keep in mind this: that every plant's DNA is based on the ingredients that are allowed in the planet. And those ingredients involve a lot more than NPK. So if you're trying to make a plant happy and you want to know what the plant was engineered through thousands or millions of years of natural selection to do, and how it was going to taste and everything naturally, try to provide a natural environment for it to take up the nutrients that it can use to build every key element in its DNA to fill out that terpene profile. So
Mother Nature knows best.
well, yeah, because it's millions of years of practice. You know, no nutrient company has been around as long as that plant has been deciding what it needs. Nobody knows what it needs because they haven't. I mean, they've narrowed it back. They haven't made it. They haven't expanded it. And so that being said, that's going to take us right into the rosin. I was listening to one of your. There we go. Ah, for Growley. Yes, I know for Growley well. Um, very nice. Lemon lime grapefruit. Right on. So I'm gonna have to go dig some out of my refrigerator. And I went. I bought. Oh wow, is the sauce very pretty. Um, we bought a Nug Smasher. So DNC Danny. the if you can so no, I don't know if everybody can see the, I don't know if everybody watches it, but if the faces on the Fagroli, was that lemon grapefruit, lime grapefruit?
Yeah, lime and grapefruit.
All right. he can't he can't take his hand off the nectar collector. I was gonna I I was just thinking I should do a dab on the Puffco just for the camera, but I don't think it's charged because I always use my regular rig. I just use a little travel rig. They so we bought a
See, that shit's so smooth it didn't even make me cough. And you see me dying earlier, bro. Dying with the mute on.
no shit, yeah. That dude, he creates some fire stuff. I met him through, I don't know if you guys know, on Instagram, Jeff at Quest Hydro, or Quest Dehumidifier, not Quest Hydro, Quest Dehu. Um, Jeff's a super cool industry guy. He's the rep for Quest Dehumidifiers here in Michigan. And if you don't know somebody, then Jeff knows him. He's one of those kind of guys. He's a great guy to know. He introduced me to Growley.
No, sadly, we're the new kids on the block, man. So, like, it's kind of cool to hear things from you because you're part of the network. And now, you know, this is what the cannabis community in Michigan really has been known for, is our ability to network. And, hey, I know a guy, or hey, I know a gal that does this, man. You know, so right on.
And I'll tell you what, this whole business, it's the best part. It's the best part of the slaw. It's the best part of cannabis is it reminded people that we're a community.
Dude, it's the friends we made along the way.
Yeah, it reminded people that we can change. That wait a minute, this is America. We can change the law. We just have to go out, get some signatures, put them on a ballot, and vote on it. We still have the right. Nobody did that, for anything. We changed the we stopped the drug war with ballots, and then we built the community from the ground up, from the caregiver model all the way to where we're at now. Everybody got involved, got their hands dirty, and did some work. And so the community, it's like the friends you make during a hurricane. That forged in fire friendship are friendships forever. And so a lot of these people, when you talk to them, I mean, these are guys that you were talking to after they got raided, and they lost their shit and they lost their money, or they were, after a cup would get raided, or you were trying to help somebody out after the stuff got taken out of.
Yeah, but you always had an extra light. You always had an extra clone. You always have an extra pack of seeds. And the thing is neither one of us are unique in that. You've always got to help somebody come back up, man. You know what I mean? That's what the community's got to be about. Because, by God, you'd want somebody to do it for you, too.
Well, and here's the thing. The community did it for you. If it wasn't for the community, we wouldn't be here. There's been dudes, listen, I don't know if you remember the Mad Hatter. He passed away. He was a good friend of mine. I mean, he did 18 months over one little old doobie in Ann Arbor in the 60s. And John St. Clair, those guys have been fighting this fight for a long time and just beating it up and going to jail. they did it for you, man. They didn't make any goddamn money out of it. They did it just to make the world a better place, right? So if you don't participate in making the world a better place, shame on you, because you going against everything you have. It wouldn't be here if it wasn't for guys in this community that most of them are still alive and still talking to you. You owe them some respect. I mean, at least be cool with them.
Overgrow it all, man. Overgrow it all.
Right. I mean, it's the community here is awesome, and the come up was great, and all these guys, and like I said, there's still just so many great people. You know, there's some dissension in some of the social media stuff where people say that it's getting commercial, or this one did this, or this guy did that, blah blah blah. And I think anytime you have a community, there's going to be personal beefs and stuff. But for the most part, this community is strong and getting stronger, and a lot of cool people. I mean, I didn't the These Bags crew. I just met them, a couple weeks ago. They seem like fire folks, right? And they're brand new in my circle. They happen to come to one of our events, and I'm still knocking off 2 or 3 really cool people like that a week or a day sometimes. You know what I mean? And so to have all these great people still walking into your life. I don't know if you guys follow Diamond Organics on Instagram, but he's another vet, man, and he's just a cool organic vet. And he grows, he helps his patients out. He's super proud of what he does. He's just a solid cat, and I'm just still running into 2 or 3 people a day like that. And man, I'll tell
While
you.
you're on the subject, do you want to give some shout outs to some
That's what I was just going to say. I'm like, I love it. We usually have to ask people this, and this dude's already on it, man.
Yeah, I tell you what. So I got a guy. I have some people, and I don't know. You guys don't know this, but I went down. I think pretty much all of them. I wanted to make sure that I did give a shout out to my guy DNC Danny. So Dirtman Danny, DNC Danny on Instagram is my guy. He works with me, and he did a great job of spreading the message. He's at the events with me. He's a fire grower, and he had this plant. He has this Gorilla Glue cut, and we entered it into the last Detroit Cup. So he used Great Lakes water only soil and a hose. He didn't even catch the chlorine or bubble the water. He watered Great Lakes water only. He handed it to me. The trim on it was horrible. I had to go back. I was like, go trim this a little better. He turns it in. It tested out like 27.9%. We posted the test. It was legit water only, start to finish, not even dechlorinated water, right? So if you come across DNC Danny, if you see him in the forums, he's always talking on the organic growers, and he does my extraction. I bought him a Nug Smasher, and he does everything for me. He's a great dude. So I do want to shout out to Danny. I love you, Danny. And like I said, man, you let me give some call outs to my guys like, Horizon and HTG, Ultra Green, Premier Hydro, all those stores, man. They're just really good dudes, man. I get to work with them a lot. The Premier guys do an excellent job for us, and along with the rest of them. So I love in every store here, man, in Michigan. Thank you, everybody. Like, I move to tears on a regular basis when I think about how much how a small company was able to get to such a place because people gave us a chance, and that goes back to the community. It's just great people. So, and
that's what that community is for us, man. That's what that community is for us. That's really a warm embrace from everyone that we've come across so far. And, just like meeting you or the folks from These Bags, it's just been amazing every step of the way.
Right. And I'll tell you, man, like if you guys, if you get a chance to talk to G from Extreme Gardening, like that crew, I mean, they're Mycos and ASOs. Everybody uses them. If you don't, reach out to G. He's a super cool guy everybody knows him. Everybody loves him, He introduced me to Buddy up there at Cloud Cultivation and stuff. He's got all those great parties coming up. We're going to be at his next one here in August. And so we got the Grow Throw. I don't know if you guys play disc golf, but we're going to be doing the Grow Throw at Growers Outlet Byron Center. Do you ever do that?
Yeah.
Have you been to the Grow Throw?
No, I haven't been to that one,
So,
but I've thrown a lot down, towards the city and things like that, like Bryce Park and all
you got to
those.
go out. You should come out. It's at the end of July. It's man, I should know this and when I'm talking to you guys, but it's at the end of July. It's like the last Saturday of July. They have their Grow Throw in Byron Center. It's a growers outlet. And I'll tell you, John and Bridget at Horizon are great people. All the people that work there are fire. They're all cool. And
Golf and cannabis always goes together, man. I said disc golf and cannabis always goes together.
Oh yeah, and yeah. So they do a great job. They do this growers outlet, the Grow Throw. And so it starts at the grow store, and it's all big growers go out to the Brewers Park over there, and we sponsor it. We're actually on the front of the disc. If you go on Instagram, it's the disc, and Discraft let them put a bud on the disc this year because it's wrapped. Like, whoa, what a mind blower, right? And so yeah, it's super exciting. So if you disc golf, man, if you want to come out, like I'll get you in. I'll get you on the list. You just let me know. It's super.
And when is that?
It's the last Saturday in July.
Right on, man. You know what? That's pretty cool.
Yeah, definitely, man. If you can come out, if you can get out to Byron Center, man, I'll take care of you. We'll have a good old time. And it's just a really good party.
Yeah, a lot of great people.
My friend, like G from Extreme is always out there, and Brandon from Psycho Nutrients, and all the whole posse.
I'll make sure to bring my buds, man.
It's just a lot of really cool. Oh, I'll tell you. So I love to sesh out with people, and I love to sesh out with organic people, and so anytime, just come out, man. And I always have something, and so like, and I'll have something from me, and then like I'll have something that IDK grew, and I'll have something that like Dirtman Danny grew. I'll have something that like my homeboy grew, or like Project CX grew, like any like people that grow in my soil, they love to give me weed, right? So and I like to brag people up on that, like I just love really good growers. I like to talk to them, and I like to steal their ideas.
Dude, I feel your enthusiasm.
Use them in my garden, and yeah, it's we have a lot of fun. It's I mean, you guys get to do a show and get to talk to all the great Michigan guys. I mean, that's got to be. I got to tell you, I'm a little envious.
We are lucky that way.
My time in
I was bragging to somebody that I had a question about CO2, and I could just, text a cup winner and ask him, and then he just answered my questions. Shout out to Kyle Gardner. Appreciate you, bro.
Kyle. No, I think it's because we don't try to be anything that we're not. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying I know all these people or I've done all these things. I'm just a regular dude that's a grower, and I want to get better, and I really dig this community because I've met way more good people than I have bad from it. I have lifelong friends that I've met specifically through cannabis that I've had for many, many, many years.
Well, it just shows that the more you embrace it, the more it embraces you back. Like, by us putting out a podcast, it made our voices heard more, and then we got a little bit of attention from people that, kind of shared similar views. And I think that's really neat.
Well, and it's an excellent. I think it's an excellent format for you to get a lot of ideas out, and I think that as this rec market grows, I think more and more people are going to be really tuning into this kind of stuff just for ideas, and I think just for entertainment. I think what the hell else is there? You couldn't talk about it for so long, and I think now everybody's just ready to talk about it. After 60 years, we're just ready to talk about it, and so I feel like, yeah, man, good for you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. So we ask everybody that's been on here. You're kind of like a cold call. We didn't set this thing up, weeks and weeks ago, and then said, okay, we're going to go ahead and record. We basically just came together, had a virtual sesh here, kicked it. And so what would you want to say in closing to anybody out there? And just, you know what I mean? Put your message out there. What do you want people to know? What do you want people to, when they turn off this podcast, to go, wow, man, I really dug a lot of what Tommy was saying, but what really stuck with me the most was, what do you want them to walk away with?
Well, I'll tell you, thank you. And I hope that everybody continues, like we said earlier, just to be as cool as we have up to now. A lot of really cool people worked really hard and did a lot of footwork and grassroots, put a lot of this together so we could legally enjoy this. And we have a great program in place. Don't squander it. Keep up the fight and keep up the good work. Let's keep on our politicians. We learned that we're in control, and now we have to use that power responsibly. And let's keep up the fight. And the Detroit Nutrient Company has a product called Fungi and Fungale sterilized grain bags. So this psilocybin battle that is coming next, we'll be on the forefront again, just like we were with weed. We're going to donate to the politicians. We'll
put on
fundraisers, and so let's keep up the fight, and we're always here for you. You know, if you have an organization, if you're trying to help some kids, if you're trying to help the handicapped, if you're trying to help the homeless, if you're trying to help the people in Flint, if you're working towards better legislation, you know, if there's a way we can help, we can. Obviously, I'm not rich, but we'll work as hard as we can to get back to the community, because man, we've had a blast getting here. So thanks, guys, and thank you guys in the broad aspect of guys. Thanks to everybody that's listening. Thank you to the people that have been on here that have mentioned my product. I mean, I'm just listening today. A couple people have in the podcast I listened to, and when you do that, man, I don't know, it makes you feel. It makes the 18-20 hour days worth it. So,
warm and fuzzy.
It did. It made me feel warm. When old Spartan Girl mentioned me, I was like, oh man, that made me feel warm and fuzzy. What a great guy. So it's
shout out to Spartan.
Yeah.
Now you're one of the guys that people are going to mention.
What's that?
Now you're one of the guys that these people are going to mention on the future episodes.
Yeah, man. And I'll tell you, when you're going through here, you know, if you want to reach out, I think if you ever want to talk to Jimmy from, I don't know, maybe edit out Jimmy until you talk to him. But if you want to talk to, I can't believe it's not butter. Like, loves to talk about extraction. I don't know. Some of those guys are still like old school, and they don't like to come out of the woodwork. He might.
I'd be interested in that. Yeah, for sure.
Man, like I do a lot of. So I'll talk to them, and I'll talk to IDK also, and see, and you know, see if they want to come on. They don't like a lot of attention, but I'll talk to the Grow Pros, because the Smiley Gardens on IG from Grow Pros, he's an organic soil builder, and he's actually really knowledgeable when it comes to organics and teas. Like, him and I have had some really long conversations. I would say the meat and potatoes of teas, if you wanted to explore them in depth, he probably has a better knowledge about that even than I do. Like, the dude is really on it. So I think if you wanted to reach out to him, I'm going to see him on Saturday. He might be a good dude. I'll tell you, Smiley Gardens, shout out to Smiley Gardens. He's fire. Follow him on Instagram. He's a super cool guy. And yeah, man. So any of those guys that, if you want to reach out, or if you want to try, if there's anybody you want to get a hold of that you see on our stuff, you know, like Paisley Acres too, I think Max from Paisley Acres, I think he would talk to you. And I'm going to tell you, Max can talk to you about biodynamics and the science of the planet. And like, you won't, he'll blow your mind. Like, he's turned me on to so many great books. There's just a ton of great books and a ton of knowledge. And it, just because it doesn't have a cannabis leaf on the cover doesn't mean it's not going to make you a better cannabis grower. If you learn about Johnny Appleseed and his true mission and what he really accomplished in America, you'll understand genetics better. If you understand the climate change and the history of where the plant has traveled to and come from and is going, and different plants and different amendments and different styles of growing of many different products. If you understand your food chain, then you understand your manures better. If you understand your food better, you understand all your plant life, and you even understand the insects in your local in your local area better. If you know the farmers around you, what they're driving out is getting driven into you, that kind of stuff. So when you pull the microscope back and you're looking for knowledge, the knowledge isn't always in a book that's got a pot leaf on the cover. There's a lot more to be learned by so many other books in so many types of gardening that you can take back to this. And that's really what I was saying earlier. That's what I really encourage people to do is look at the big picture, grow many different types of plants, learn how they all work. And when you understand plant science, you'll understand how to grow better plants.
Yeah, that really translates for organic. When you're growing tomatoes out in your garden, you're learning a lot of plant knowledge that you can apply to all plants, and goes right into your indoor garden.
And I mean, even if you're doing hydro, indoor, I'll tell you, I don't know if you guys remember Dan, the rep from Technoflora. He works with Crop King now. He owns Michigan Greens. I can't remember what he is on Instagram, but he's got he does hydroponic greens and he slays it. And I mean, he's an old pot grower, man. Like he translated it into a really big business. There's just a lot. A plant is a plant. And if you understand how plants work, and that it's such a big picture, if you narrow down and you think that you can micromanage one plant differently and take it out of the broad spectrum of plants, it's a fool's errand. It can't be done. It's a plant. And so if you know how plants grow and what they actually do at every stage in the process, and you look at the big picture on how nature interacts inside the plant, whether you're using synthetic nutrients or organic nutrients, if you see what the nature and the plant's doing with whatever you give to it, you'll understand how to manipulate that better. And that's the trick, is look to the plant. Don't ask your homeboy what he does. Ask your plant. There's and that's my joke all the time with the hydro stores is, like, well, I don't know. My homeboy uses this, and you're just like, yeah, man, I don't know. Like, is he God? Did he design the thing? You know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to tell you, there's a better way. And so, yeah, and that's it. Just think about the plants first, and you'll just be a better grower. I mean, they're going to talk to you. I mean, you don't have to be on the amount of drugs I'm on for plants to talk to you. They will. They're going to show you everything they need. You just got to listen. Just be patient. Go in there, look at them every once in a while. And there's no secret. There isn't a secret that any Cannabis Cup winner has. There's nothing one cup winner could tell you that isn't the same thing we would all tell you, or everybody would tell you. It's a combination of all the tiny little things in your room.
It's science.
It's everything from your temperature to your humidity. It's everything in your room. It's your entire environment. Those little things. There isn't one big thing that's going to put you over the edge. It's being spot on every tiny thing. That's how you grow the best plants.
And that's what's called dialing in your garden.
Yeah.
It's a process, man. It takes years. I mean, some people are really, really lucky and they get it right the very first time, and they plan everything properly, and it all comes together and it works for 7-8 years. Not all of us have been that lucky. It's a gradual increase. It's more and more learning, but it's the willingness to recognize that you don't know everything and that there's more for you to learn, and you just have to find a way to learn it. Some people learn really well by reading. Some people learn well by video. Some people just by podcasts. You know what I mean?
Right.
But sometimes it's a matter of somebody being able to teach you something with an analogy. Sometimes an analogy can really, really get you there. And it's not science, but it'll get you in the ballpark. then we can really start to focus in it with that microscope, like you were saying.
Right.
For sure.
It's the truth, man. Like, I'm a Taoist, and that makes everything in plant life easier, because because you accept that you're not, like, I'm not a control freak in any aspect of the word. I understand that I have very little control. I'm just trying to put the right bunch of factors together. So I can't control the outcome. I can only control the inputs. I just make sure I try to do the best I can on my inputs, and then we'll see what comes out. I mean, 90% of it's genetics, and anybody smart will tell you that. Run fire beans. You got to be an idiot to screw them up. And then from there, it is. It's just like championship hockey. One chip of the ice is what makes the Stanley Cup winner. Once you get to the last round of the playoffs, you might as well be the winner, because the difference is so minute. And that's how it gets when you get to a certain level. Once you tune in your garden, that's why guys like Max and the malted barley guys, the Paisley Jaeger guys, and the Korean farming guys, and Caladamus Coots, and all these guys that really tune in on this, and Leaf Doctor, especially these guys, like they're in on every detail so much. They're so locked in. It's such a focus that they have the little bit extra to get them at the cup level. So for you to get there, for anybody, not you in particular, but for any listener here, anybody can do it. No, they don't come down on, they don't have a throne. When you talk to them, they got problems with their old lady too. You know what I mean? Their dog shits in the house, whatever. And so when you're talking to these guys, and know that everybody's that close to them, that it's not some secret that everybody has. It's just people that are really paying attention and really doing what they're supposed to be doing. I mean, our cup winners were grown in a glorified deer blind, pretty much. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, you got to be spot on your stuff, and that's the difference. And you're on it. You know what I mean? You guys obviously are on it, and most of your guests are on it. And I feel like if you just point that out to especially these new rec growers, or anybody that has the question, a new medical grow, whoever, just be on the details. If you want to know what makes the winner, that's it. Get a calendar. Write every day on the calendar what you did in your grow room, or keep a dry erase board in your room. Write down what you did, so you can go back and reference every grow and see what you did at every stage. There shouldn't be a day. If there's a day missing, you don't spend enough time. You should look at your plants every day. You know what I mean? If you want to do it right, that's how you do it. If you just want to do it for fun, there's nothing wrong with that either. Buy some Great Lakes water-only soil, water it every 3 days, grow some fire, and you got enough weed to get by. But if you want to make it a hobby and you want to compete and go out and be with the cup guys and do the stuff, well, keep your eye on the prize, and the devil's in the details, right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I just got done adjusting my room before I'm going into flowers, so I added AC and CO2 and a different setup for scrog, and sealed the room. So we'll see how adding those little details will affect my outcome versus the last crop that I just had.
And tell the listeners how you are achieving that. How are you using an air conditioner, and how are you achieving CO2 levels? Give them an eye inside of the garden. Walk them through it real quick.
These bags helped me out with some CO2 supplemental bags. We'll have a segment out with them here soon. And I'm really excited about using those. I have a CO2 monitor coming on Monday, so we can monitor the progress in that room. And they're excited about the results for that too. So we're all going to learn a little bit together on that. And then for the AC, you need an AC unit that doesn't transfer your inside air with your outside air. A lot of people use a mini split. You can use some window units if they can recycle the air. You have to do a little bit of research on that. But in order to use AC and CO2 effectively, you have to seal your room completely. And when you seal your room, you have to add CO2, or the plants will starve for carbon, essentially. That's what all of that stuff is for. We'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Do you have roll arounds, or do you have a mini split in there? What kind of air conditioning do you have?
Mine is window air conditioner.
So but it's a split air window air conditioner, so you're not.
Yeah.
How are you keeping the CO2 if you don't?
How am I keeping the
It's a
CO2
split
in?
air, so it keeps the air inside the room.
Yeah. It
Yeah.
recycles the air inside, yeah. It never transfers it outside.
It recycles air. All right, cool. Yeah, because I actually just came down. You asked me if there was at the beginning of this. You asked me if there was a strain that I consistently run, and there is not. I pretty much am popping seeds all the time. I used to run the same strains for a long time and keep mothers, and this goes back to like, so I don't do it for money, and I do it for fun, and I like to compete and stuff like that. Um, so I just went through and tore the room down, and we put a bunch of the guys at Next Light gave me Next Light Mega, and we started running that. And I run Autopot wick feeding systems. Are you guys familiar with Autopot? You
Yep.
know, yeah. So I run
It's
Autopots,
a
and
reservoir system, yeah.
you used to run them.
No, I just know how the autopot system works, so I was just getting ready to
Yeah,
explain it. But yeah, I'm sure
yeah.
you'll explain it here.
Yeah, it's just a wick feeding autopot system. So it uses gravity. There's no working parts. It wick feeds from the bottom, so you got to water the plant a couple of times. And once the wick begins, then the plant waters itself perfectly. When you're using living soils, peat-based soils, a lot of times if you use wick feeding, it's a lot easier because it's peat can be hydrophobic, so it'll take up the perfect amount. And living soils are dense, and because of compost in living soil, they retain moisture. So guys that come out of like cocoa or soilless medium have a tendency to overwater living soils. So if they use wick feeding, they don't have that problem. And so we use Autopots. Manny on Autopots is a great dude, and we use we got Next Light in there. We've got HLG 550s. Got in my I have a small veg tent that I use to pop seeds in. That I have a kind LED, so I switch the whole room over to LEDs, and I do roll arounds because this grows in Detroit. So you you don't want condensers sitting outside, especially especially during the recession. They were just stealing them. So I just roll around indoor, and you don't want everybody to know. You know, it's not so much the cops you don't want to know you're growing; it's the criminals are more dangerous. Um, so we use roll arounds here, and we use all Gorilla Grow tents, and and yeah, that's pretty much our system. We do the teas from the top. You know, we use the autopots for the watering, but you can still tea from the top. That's how we do that. Sometimes we run some MFP in our stuff. Planet Earth teas we use a lot of times. Um, I use the Cleveland Guano Company guanos that they carry at HTG because I like the selection they have better than the old Sunleaf selection. And yeah, man. And that's pretty much what we got going on over here. And like I said, today we popped some Mosca seeds. We popped Mosca moonshine cookies, I believe. No, blue iguana from Mosca. We popped some blue alien from Sci-Fi Genetics, and I don't know if you guys follow Sci-Fi Genetics or not, but you should if you don't. Really good guy, really great breeders. We're gonna do some blue alien. We did some blue alien on the last run. I had a really good pheno on it, and so we're going back to see what else we can get out of it. See if I can find something even better. And then I'm doing IDK Farms Granddad 91 on seeds. So we're gonna get a run going and get it on Instagram and show everybody. I pop my seeds in rapid rooter cubes just for speed, and then I drop it right in my soil. A lot of times we'll do them on Instagram right in the soil just because people don't believe that you can pop seeds in living soil that's going to finish. So if you go on my IG, you see that we can do that. I explained earlier in how Living Soil works on how that works. So, yeah, man, that's that. I don't know. I feel like I gave my closing statement like 25 minutes ago. So,
I feel you. It's been a
Well,
good
we
time,
don't have
man,
to-
because you've
yeah.
really given us a lot of information, though. There's a lot of sifting. You know, you may have to listen to this one more than once,
yeah,
and that's okay,
yeah, cool.
man.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, if you guys like I said, and you feel free anytime if you want to reach out on any of the stuff that I talked about. If you have any questions, like I can. A lot of times, if I don't have the answer, I mean, I don't have all the answers, right? But I know the people that have the answers. Like, I'm just always out there every day, 18 hours a day, talking to growers, 7 days a week. So usually I'll know a guy that is trying it that way, like, and so that's pretty cool. If you hit me up, on the DM or with an email or whatever, you or your listeners. I mean, if we can help you in a direction, we always will. That's we just want to spread the love, and it helps if you use our product. And I return your phone calls quicker, but but we'll always help you out. That was just cool. Anything else? But yeah, man. So it's really good to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. And on that note, you've been listening to the Michigan Bros Grow Show. Thanks.
Oh, I hate goodbyes.
Lloyd.
Just go.
Damn button.
Push the goddamn button!
You heard what she said.